What is going on, everybody? Welcome into opening week. It is finally here. We've waited so long since the end of the season last year in June for this week to come. Welcome into the rubber match. As always, I'm your host, Evan Kamika. We're not going to go too long on our housekeeping stuff. I've got a great guest and a great conversation coming your way in just a bit with Arkansas play-by-play voice Phil Elson. Cannot wait for you all to hear that, hear Phil's take on the season and what is going to happen. We'll talk, obviously, baseball opening the season. That's our big theme for the week. And I'll touch a little bit on softball out of the Kickin' Chicken Classic. That's coming up later after Phil's interview, so stick around for that. But as always, let's do our housekeeping stuff really quickly. Again, we found out a couple of really important things in the last 24 hours. As for Kahio Aloy, he's been battling sickness, mono, you name it, he's probably had it. Dave Van Horn really excited. But so our Hawaiian homer counter, that's at 0 right now. As for the rotation, the big thing that we have just found out, it will be Gabe Gackle, as we have discussed the last 2 weeks, going to be the opening day starter for the Razorbacks. So our K counter is going to get up and active this season early on. He'll start Friday night in that game against Oklahoma State. As for the rest of the rotation, how it's going to look, it is going to be Gackle and then Hunter Dietz on Saturday before Colin Fisher on Sunday over Cole Gibler. That was the big question mark, which of those two guys would start. And the nod for Sunday goes to the one, the only, the kid from Noble, Oklahoma, Colin Fisher. We saw him a couple of years ago pitch really well in this tournament at that ballpark against Oklahoma State, getting Arkansas out of some jams late in the game. So can't wait to see what he does there. All right, let's do our quick field view and my prediction for opening weekend, what it's going to look like. It's pretty much the same as last week. You've got Gackle on the mound. We're right there. Helfrich behind the plate. Robinette, Kojal, first base, second base. That doesn't change anything. Carson Brumbaugh at short. TJ Pompey at third, your outfield, Ruiz, New, and Aloy. DH, I've got Nolan Souza. I think he's going to lead off the year and hit number one for this Razorback team. Can't wait to see what happens there. So only time will tell, but like I said, I don't want to talk too much. Coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to take you out to that interview a couple of days ago with the one, the only Phil Elson. Stick around. The rubber match returns after these words from our sponsors. All right, excited to be joined right before opening week with one of the voices of the Arkansas Razorback baseball team. That's Phil Elson. Phil, thanks for taking some time. We've got to see this team. It feels like a limited time on the field. I know you were over at the scrimmages this past weekend. So as we transition from that 2025 season that saw the run end in Omaha, what's your expectations right now for 2026 as the season's right around the corner?
You know, I try not to base expectations off of what happened the year before. I always feel, especially now, because of how the team just is different, almost not 100% different, but so different on an annual basis. And I remember other seasons going into a year, thinking about, well, last year's team was really good and the guys are back and, maybe this is an Omaha season. And it's difficult to kind of compare from one to the next. So where I start from, Evan, always is who are the coaches and how good are they at having an eye for talent, developing that talent, and then coaching that talent in the context of each game and each series. And that's where you got to start with Arkansas baseball. And they have the best coaching staff in the country, or at least one of them. So, I mean, I think it's fair every year to go into the season thinking that this is going to be a team that can reach Omaha, because that is the standard that I think the program has set for itself over the last, 10, 22 years, really. And I think this team has the capability of getting there again. So I guess that's what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, that's kind of, again, the baseline, it seems, of this team every year, at least since I've been here, since, like you kind of mentioned, the last 10 to 20 years under Dave Van Horn. But when you look at this roster in 2025, it's the same story as the last couple of years. Brand new kind of what feels like starting rotation, brand new outfield. Let's start on the mound in the rotation. It seems like Gabe Gackle's got to be the guy this year for this Razorback team. But behind him, and again, like that was what we were talking about last year, and luckily for them, Zach Root pitched really well at times, but there wasn't like consistency on the mound all year long when it came to that rotation being solid and down. What are you looking at for the rotation this year behind Gabe Gackle, who, again, presumably will be the Friday starter?
Well, I mean, steadiness is a very important thing for starting pitching, and that's why the Friday starting pitcher is so important, because that sets the tone for the weekend. and in many ways kind of sets the tone for your season, because that'll sort of decide how many innings your relievers are going to need to pitch. Um, so I do think with Gabe, it's not a question as to whether or not he can start, because it's interesting when you think about his struggles as a starter last year compared to other pitchers that have been at Arkansas, and why they struggled with, which in a lot of cases might have been, not used to the pressure of that, or might not have had the repertoire, the amount of pitches that you need to keep batters off of your best pitch. That's not Gabe at all. I mean, he was closing as a freshman. That's
Hmm.
as pressure packed as it gets. And his repertoire is 3 to 4 pitches. So it has nothing to do with those two things. And I think for him, for himself as a pitcher moving forward in the draft, it's imperative for Gabe to show that he is a starting pitcher because he's got that stuff. And it's the exact same thing for Hunter Dietz. It's like it's a totally different thing for Dietz because this is a kid with first round capabilities, a first round body, a first round arm, who's thrown 1 2/3 innings in 2 years at Arkansas. And so there isn't a team out there, an opponent out there at all that has any clue what Hunter Dietz brings to the mound, except for his teammates that faced him in the fall this last year. Um, and he's got that same capability, I think, as Gabe to be a dominant pitcher. So I really do think that there's a capability of two aces in this starting rotation, and that's what you didn't have last year. That's what you didn't have the year before. There's the capability of from two pitchers the last couple of years, but you didn't necessarily get it. Doesn't mean you're going to get it this year just because Gabe and Dietz are talented and throw the heck out of the ball and have good secondary stuff. But the ability is there. And then after that, I think with Colin Fisher, I mean, he's shown he's a strike thrower. He needs, the defense behind him is going to be is imperative to getting outs. And as long as he's throwing strikes, and not beating himself, I think he'll be a good starting pitcher. And it really does feel to me like right now they like Cole Gibbler in the bullpen.
Hmm.
I love how he worked in the bullpen last year, and I think he's going to be an incredibly valuable piece, if not the most valuable piece out of the bullpen this next season too.
It feels like having that bullpen punch of Gibbler and Coyle is something that, again, you look around the country and maybe not many people are talking about them because it feels like Arkansas is very flying under the radar this year. You've got a lot of talk on Mississippi State, Texas, Tennessee, you name it, LSU, obviously reigning national champions. But with this Arkansas team, you return, I think, more pitchers than people really realized from last season, which could be, again, a good thing, could not. We never know how the season's actually going to turn out, but that Gibbler Coyle punch in the bullpen could go a long way. And even James DeCramer coming over from Oregon State, another name that I really like.
Jackson Kirshner,
Hmm.
Mark Briss. You got some talented freshmen, I think, that are really going to have a chance to show that they can compete in the SEC. Joey Lorenzini would be one of them as a left-hander. Um, so but part of this is also how many freshmen on an annual basis really make that much of a dent.
Hmm.
I think last year mostly it was Gibbler. And that happened kind of later in the season. I think they're gonna not rely, but they're gonna need a few more innings from some younger pitchers in some cases this year. But yeah, the depth is there. I do think that this pitching staff is going to miss a lot of bats, and what I'm hoping to see, which I think we alluded to at the start, is just more length from starting pitching, so that you're not taxing the bullpen so much. Now you're not going to get that early in the season, but I think by 2 3 weeks into the season, it'd be really nice to see consistently 6 innings, maybe pitching seven, pitching into the eighth if you're Gackle, because he's got that kind of stuff to be able to do that too.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And again, we look at kind of the schedule, and that first weekend is that Arlington Showcase that we've talked about, the Shriners Children's College Baseball Showdown. Really interested on that. What's your kind of take as we head into this weekend about where Arkansas stacks up with the rest of the teams before we dive in on the hitters for the Razorbacks?
Oh, they're going to stack up just fine. I mean, I've looked ahead at the teams, and Oklahoma State, it has the third longest stretch of reaching the regional, so that's always a consistent team. And every time Arkansas plays Oklahoma State, whether it's been in their regional in Stillwater or in Arlington the last couple of times, it's always a memorable game, whether the Hogs score 17 against them or go 14 innings, and strike out 25 batters, which is what happened the last time they faced each other.
Mhm.
This also is a pitcher's park, and I think pitchers usually are a little bit ahead of the batters early in the season. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see the same thing. TCU is probably the most complete team in the Big 12 this year, and Texas Tech has been down a couple of years in a row, which really is not like them. So, but the Hogs will be I think the favorite in all three games, and I think there's good reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I want to talk about the hitters now and get to the offensive side of the ball. It feels like there's going to be a lot riding on Ryder Helfrich this year to be, I've called him before kind of my favorite for the Golden Spikes. I think he's got that potential and that pop. But it feels like if this Arkansas lineup's going to be where it kind of was last year, it starts with number 27 behind the plate.
It can. I mean, he's going to be put in a run-producing spot where you're going to depend upon Ryder to drive in runs, and he's hit more bottom middle of the lineup, especially last year. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him moved, into third or fifth in the lineup because what he did last year was start straightening out some of those foul balls that went down the third base line in the wrong spot. They were always Lena's just, I mean, as hard hit as they can be, and he barrels it up as good as anybody else. But you started to see him going the other way a little bit more. He's got great power, but he also was just staying on the ball a little more last year, and that's going to be huge. Um, but I think this will be a really good lineup, and that's where you have guys that I think have already, in a lot of cases, produced um, at this level in the SEC. Cam Kojal, which I think we're calling him Camden now, not Cam. Uh, he's It almost felt like a surprise that he showed so much power last year. I think he's stronger. He's a really smart hitter. So you'll count on. I still want to call him Cam. It's like calling him Camden feels like I'm referring to the city in South Arkansas. Um, I can't wait to watch Micah New
Mhm.
because he plays with an attitude and has all five tools, and you know, um, it feels to me like he might be. We're hoping like a right-handed version of Charles Davalon from last season, but when you're replacing your entire outfield and you're replacing, some of your most productive hitters, it's not a worry. It's just in some cases you're bringing guys from a lower level of college baseball that were stars there, and it's different in the SEC. I mean, you'll face like for Mike Anu playing in with Marshall in the Sun Belt, you're going to face a couple good pitchers every weekend. When you're playing in the SEC, you're going to face five good pitchers every weekend. It's just different. There's better stuff there, and they know how to get you out. So you saw that last year from Davalon. You saw that last year in a lot of cases from players that had transferred from a lower level. I think they're going to need a little more of that this year too, like a Damian Ruiz in left field, like a TJ Pompey, who it's not that he transferred from a lower level, he was just hurt last year.
Yeah.
But even going from the Big 12 to the SEC is a step up. So for him, it's also a challenge too to show that you can do it on a consistent basis against better pitching.
When you brought up Kahio Aloy, or excuse me, when you brought up Mike Anu, it almost feels a little bit like you want him to have that Kahio Aloy trajectory of, hey, I know Kahio got really hot early on last season and then kind of cooled off in SEC play. But if you can get kind of that consistency with New that maybe Kahio was missing a little towards the end of the season, that's plug and play like you've already mentioned about Charles Davalon. And I think that'll be a really fun comparison for Hog fans throughout the year. And I think there's a lot of questions right now in right field about who's going to be taking that position. Is it going to be Kahio? Is it going to be maybe some name that we haven't said yet? Because that feels like the biggest question mark right now to me in the lineup. Because the rest of and shortstop as well, Carson Burnball, we'll get there in a second. But right field and talking about the outfield, curious your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, and there's only one designated hitter spot, and we're not sure right now if Nolan Souza, if his arm is
Mm-hmm.
ready to play the field. And so he's got a bat that you need to have in the lineup as a designated hitter in that case. That's why Cujillo has to play right field. And for him too, it's like with Gabe Gackle, moving forward, you'll be drafted at a lower round if you are a reliever. That's just how it is. You'll be drafted in a lower round, or you won't be drafted if you're only a designated hitter. And that's why Cuhillo for himself has to improve in right field. And for the team itself, they need him out there. He's got the arm to play right field. I mean, he without question has the arm strength and the accuracy to play that position. The question is the footwork and the repetition. I think more than anybody, he's probably been hurt at having to be indoors because you can't practice out as great as the Walker Center is. You can't practice fly balls indoors unless you're at a place like Globe Life Field. So it's it's imperative for him to just get comfortable because he should be the everyday right fielder. A guy that I wonder about is Christian Turner,
Hmm.
who's a freshman as a left-handed hitter and might be the fastest player on the team. Um, if it doesn't work for Keo in right field, if he's hurting the team in right field, because you can erase a lot of the positivity you bring to the lineup as a hitter if you routinely bonk the ball in the outfield. Then I wouldn't be surprised if Turner gets that chance. And that might be the same in left field if Damian Ruiz isn't hitting at the level that he was brought in to hit. And then another wild card, and I wonder if he's the odd man out this year because there always are now players that are productive for their previous team transfer to Arkansas and they become an odd man out. That was Jack Wagner 2 years ago. That was Rocco Pepe last year and Carson Bowles last year. And Carson Bowles hit in 400s in Division Two, and every chance he got at Arkansas, he hit.
Hmm.
But there were some limitations, and he was an odd man out. Zach Stewart, who hit 21 home runs at Missouri State 2 years ago, right now to me looks like potentially that odd man out until he's given an opportunity and see if he runs with it.
And Stewart, like you kind of mentioned with the Missouri State transfer, somebody definitely to keep an eye on who at least early on, I felt like was going to make that big impact. I know D1 Baseball had him on some of their top seniors list, and it, to your point, seems like, hey, we'll see if this guy gets early run time because of how crowded it is. Is it a good thing to have depth rather than to, maybe be scrambling to fill guys in? Is this a good problem? It feels like the answer is yes, but curious your take on that.
Oh, it's always a good problem to have. And I think that a player like Zach or any player that transfers to Arkansas also has to take into account that while they might have had their position in, Sharpie in their previous school, it's going to be different going to Arkansas. Or really, if you just transfer into the SEC, you're not going to be handed a position and then you have to be ready. And in some cases, that's just good training for the next level, because you don't start every game. If you're not one of the big draftees and the politics of the minor leagues just leads to that, you have to be ready. And so I think in Zach's case, it's a great thing to have a fourth year player who's had success and also hit at Baum. I remember watching Zach Stewart hit a home run against Arkansas at Baum. So that's a great thing to have. Somebody that should, when the chance arises, if he just gets one or two at bats a weekend, that he'll make sure that's a good at bat.
Phil, two more, then we'll let you get out of here. We got to talk about the shortstop position. Again, you're replacing the Golden Spikes winner in Vahiva Aloy. What have you seen so far in the battles? We've, seen Landon Schaefer a little bit this offseason. Carson Brumbaugh, who it feels like that's going to be the opening day starter, in my opinion. But curious what you see at short.
I think it's going to be Carson. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think right now Landon's learning some center field. I mean, it's not like he can't play shortstop, but I think it'll be good for Landon to learn to play the other position, that a shortstop might play if he's not going to be on the infield, which would be center field. Carson looks like he can make all the plays. He's got all the range you need, the strength of a throwing arm. I mean, he's a pitcher too. I don't think he'll pitch at Arkansas very much unless there's closing opportunities in future years, but it is a lot for a freshman. It's just there's two positions that it's not that you're nervous if a freshman is playing there. It's just a lot of responsibility, and that shortstop and catcher. You don't have freshman catchers at Arkansas that play very much. The last time it happened was 2016, Grant Cook, and that's the last year Arkansas missed the NCAA tournament. And it's not on Grant. Grant was part of the team that almost won the national title 2 years after that. It just shows how much responsibility goes on a catcher. And it's the same at shortstop. You have more balls hit to you than anybody else in the field. That's why the best athlete plays shortstop. So I just hope with him, because he's got to be a shortstop first and foremost and a hitter second. And I think it's difficult to sometimes to separate those two things. When you're a ball player, you're a whole ball player. You do both things. But it's much more important for him to be a steady shortstop than it is to be a run producer. Just don't be an easy out. And I'll bet he won't be. I think he's got all the talent in the world to produce as a hitter too, but it's going to be more important for him to just be a steady shortstop now.
Phil, last question I have for you is, you asked Dave Van Horn a couple of weeks ago in the press conference about NIL and how this, college baseball is really adapting when it comes to, trying to be on the forefront of that side of things. Here at Arkansas, we see it clearly, the production year in and year out. How do you feel that this program has, the ability to adapt through the future when it comes to NIL and the greater things in college baseball that are a lot of uncertainties in the game?
Well, I think that this coaching staff would have had their opportunity a few years ago to get out if they wanted to, like a lot of college baseball coaches have, and move to the professional ranks just because it's less confusing. And you don't have to put a team together every year. So, but they're really good at this. And I don't know where Arkansas stands in terms of NIL against the rest of the SEC. My guess would be upper half, upper third, but that also means that you're competing against some programs that are throwing money out there, are already successful, and that makes it a little bit difficult. But what they haven't done is they haven't totally changed into a transfer only program. This is still a program that builds homegrown players and keeps them here. You'll notice that you don't lose a lot of players to the transfer portal at Arkansas if they're playing here. So they develop these freshmen, and you're going to see that so much in terms of the pitching staff. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about. For what I've seen, even though college baseball has become an older game, as all college sports have, this is a program that has found, I think, a proper middle ground for itself, because you can attract top talent that have been playing for other schools to Arkansas, but you also can get some of the best freshmen in the country to come here and develop their skills while they're here. The coaches are a reason why, the main reason, the facilities, the fans, none of that stuff changes right now. And they're not in the poverty, aspect of college baseball. So the steadiness of this program, the ability to stay as steady as they've been for these 10 years, where we know that they have the most wins in college baseball and the best RPI by far, they've done that and stayed consistent through these incredible, massive changes in which they used to build through junior college and freshmen. Now you're building through junior college, freshmen, and Division I transfers. And they've done it seamlessly. I think it's amazing.
Absolutely. Anything else we missed before we let you get out of here?
No. Here's the thing about when it comes to college sports. I think sometimes, and we're in the middle of the college basketball season, the I think the point of what the season is, which is not to say that that you shouldn't be disappointed if you don't get where you think you should go in the postseason. But I want to enjoy the regular season for what it is, and then go see what this team can do in June, because the regular season is long enough. And I don't want it to just be, well, let's see what happens when they get to Omaha. I want to have a lot of fun for 56 games. I want to watch a lot of great games, especially in the SEC in this coming weekend. So, let's have fun in the regular season, and then let's go see what happens in June.
Absolutely. Great way to end off. Phil Elson, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back after the break. All right, a big thank you right there to Phil Elson for joining the show. Can't wait to show you the rest of the guests we have the next couple of weeks. Arkansas is going to return home next weekend. They'll take on Xavier. Should be a really fun opening weekend at Bob Walker Stadium. As for softball, let's talk about them. What a great weekend, in my opinion, it was to open up for Courtney Deifel and company. We talked to Dudley Dawson last week, and he said he'll be happy with 3 wins. Well, Arkansas went out and they got 4. And the bats were absolutely alive. We were wondering what the production would look like when you lose Courtney Day, when you lose a player like Bree Ellis, who was the National Player of the Year last year. And the Razorbacks delivered. They scored 60 runs in 5 games, 17 in one game against Akron, 21 in another game. I mean, it was incredible. 21 was against Akron, 17 to open the season against Virginia. The pitching was pretty solid all weekend. I don't think they gave up any more than 4 runs in a single game, so that was really good to see. And again, Courtney Deifel's team, they look like a wagon. Again, the competition will pick up, especially when we get to the SEC slate as well as postseason. But a lot of time to talk softball. Again, we'll have plenty of fun guests coming on throughout the year to talk both Arkansas baseball and softball. But as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in every week to the show. Leave a comment below what you want me to see, what you want me to talk about, what you want me to ask our special guests. If you guys have any guest recommendations, put them in those comments below. Be sure to subscribe right here on our YouTube. Keep watching on 479 First as well. Thank you all for watching the show this week. Again, a big thanks to Phil Elson for coming on. We'll be back next week on the Rubber Match to talk and recap all things Arkansas baseball, softball. We'll see you very soon.